We just heard from some grown-ups in the room. And at the same time, GOP Congressman Troy Nehls, he's already said he's going to oppose any immigration bill because he does not want Joe Biden to get a win. OK, the border is a huge problem. OK, add to that down in Texas, they're stopping U.S. Border Patrol agents. The state of Texas is from doing their job because, again, they don't want to solve this, not on Biden's watch. Is this not proof that this is all just a political stunt?
Yeah, well, listen, the win needs to be for the American people and for those people on the border. There is a bipartisan solution to be had here now, and people have wanted, both Democrats and Republicans have wanted this on the border states and, you know, mayors and senators and governors, whether it's in Arizona or Texas, you know, New Mexico. And you've had people like Lindsey Graham and Senator Langford of Oklahoma, you know, working hard on this, Senator Tillis, you know, very conservative senators working on this. And they're getting the best deal they can right now. And why it would be foolish to reject it right now is, first of all, it is needed right now. It is a crisis right now. You can't be waiting 9 months. But if they wait, there's no guarantee that Republicans are going to have the House next year. You know, there's a very precarious majority right now, and with redistricting and with a lot of problem seats right now, there's no guarantee. I mean, when the prognosticators look at it, it's a real 50-50 jump ball. Secondly, you know, Donald Trump, who may be convicted, you know, I don't think he's going to be elected. But if he's convicted, we know about 58% of Americans, you know, and a lot of Republicans are not going to vote for him. So this is the best deal that Republicans could get in years. Plus, it's going to come along with the much needed aid that many Republicans and obviously Democrats want for Israel and much needed aid for Ukraine. So this deal on the border is what a lot of Democrats don't want. But this is the best we can get in years. And there's a lot of Republicans in the House want it. Patrick McHenry, conservative, you know, Republican who was, you know, the speaker for a month there in October, has said, take the win and stop listening to these loudest, foolish, you know, House Freedom Caucus guys, you know, just because they scream and shout. Do what's right for your caucus. And if you want to have a House Republican majority, take this win.
All right, Conor, what Barbara is guilty of right now is being rational, reasonable, practical. But I want you to actually be cynical. It might not be right. It is not right. But is it a strategic political move, right? People on both sides of the aisle will agree that the border crisis is a huge problem. But at the end of the day, most people blame the person in the White House. And while the problem rages on, it's Joe Biden's problem.
That's right. So I guess you could call it political for that reason, that he's responding to something that people out there in the country are demanding of him, and he feels like he needs a win to be able to stand for re-election. But I just think the big difference cannot be stated enough, which is that Joe Biden actually has an interest in solving a complex policy problem for the benefit of the people affected, you know, maybe for his own political benefit. But I think he's proven that he does care about the people that live in these towns that are shouldering the burden, the mayors of these big cities that are spending all of their money trying to take care of the influx of immigrants, and clearly the immigrants themselves. Donald Trump's life is not going to change one bit, whether 3 million people come across the border or 1 million or 5 million, and whether a bill ever gets passed. To him, these issues are just clubs to try to beat his opponents with. That's more than clear at this point. And that's why he's going to tell the Republicans to be against it. I think one of the really under-noticed aspects of the Biden presidency is that he keeps legislating with full Democratic votes and then small slices of Republicans, like he just did on this spending bill. And if he can find a way to make that happen on immigration as well, it's going to be a major accomplishment, whether he gets credit for it or not.
No, what I'm asking is, can any of these Republicans who are voting against it do it with a straight face? Is there any reason besides we just want chaos and to help Donald Trump because while the border's a problem, it looks bad for Biden? Isn't that their only reason for doing this?
Most likely. I mean, it would depend what was in the final compromise. Look, I mean, I'm not afraid to say that there are Republican arguments for border security that are strong and empirical, and have been better than some of the ones put forward by Democrats. So you could see someone saying, look, this doesn't do enough with technology. This doesn't, impose enough of a burden, there's going to be 3 million people next year under this bill. You could make policy arguments, but that's clearly not what they're going to do. If the first day that Donald Trump says vote against it, they're all rushing to say that they're against it.
Barbara, you know centrist Republicans. Do you think Democrats could persuade more centrist Republicans to break away and support a border deal?
Well, listen, if you're one of those swing Republicans that, is fighting, to come back, you're in a Biden, a seat that Biden won, or, you're in one of those tough districts and you're rejecting this, you are putting yourself in jeopardy. But more importantly, the speaker is putting his majority in jeopardy. So, yes, he's in a tough spot. He has these people, from the Freedom Caucus who are threatening his, his speaker role. But if he wants to be speaker and bring back that majority, he has to listen to Patrick McHenry, a very wise conservative, and say, stop listening to these loudest voices and do what's right for the majority of your caucus. But more importantly, good policy is always good politics. And the good policy, what's good for the country, is to get this solution that will be supported. You have very conservative senators over there who have worked this out, put this together, and then, for goodness sake, conservatives, who care about Israel, who care about Ukraine, who care about the border, you can go home and sell this, regardless of what Donald Trump is going to say or what the Freedom Caucus is going to say, and have the courage of your convictions and go out there and go back to your districts and sell it. It will be the right thing to do. Do not be afraid of these, a Bob Good from, the Freedom Caucus guy from Virginia, who actually is already being opposed in a primary because he was supporting Ron DeSantis and not Donald Trump. So don't be afraid of him, for goodness sake.